Akatsuki Bakugo, the explosive and cocky deuteragonist of My Hero Academia. This angry boy has been both a bully and a rival to resident cinnamon roll Deku since childhood. Add to that his hot-headed personality and his constant yelling, he has the makings of a truly annoying character. But he's one of the biggest fan favorites of the series, consistently topping popularity polls, and to be honest, he's one of my favorites too. Even though I disliked him at first, just because of his bullying tendencies, he's grown on me a lot throughout the series. Today, I'm going to take a look at all the things we like about him to explain why Bakugo is loved by My Hero Academia fans far and wide. To begin with, Bakugo is presented to us as a contrast to Midoriya. As his school rival, Bakugo gives depth to this story and shows off our protagonist's good qualities by being his opposite in a lot of ways. His volatile rage highlights Midoriya's good nature, and his bullying provides us with context for a world where quirkless people are looked down upon. Additionally, the fact that he's worked hard all his life to be such a competent quirk user makes it clear to us how Deku being given one for all is a major blessing. For even more contrast, Bakugo and Deku both have the same ultimate goal, to be the #1 hero. But they have different ways of trying to achieve this goal, starting from their origins as a quirk user and quirkless respectively, continuing through their opposing personalities. All this means is that Bakugo is important to the story, and in making Deku a likable main character. But as we get to know Bakugo himself, he takes on a life and story of his own that sets him apart from just being a basic rival and classmate. Something that does set him apart is the fact that he is often the comic relief. And in a show like My Hero Academia that treats every plot with the same intensity, God do we need it. Bakugo is perfect for this, because he delivers savage one-liners with ease, and we absolutely believe that an aggressive kid would say those things. His irritated expressions are ridiculous, because they're so over the top, and they provide a lot of the humor. He's not above breaking the fourth wall either, and even called a bunch of background characters extras. If you say you've never laughed out loud at one of Bakugo's lines, I honestly don't believe you. He's a super hilarious guy. Aside from his own grumpy comebacks, the other characters' reactions to his aggro personality are also hilarious. If you've ever had a friend who would get riled up at the smallest things, you've probably set them off on purpose once or twice for fun, right? Well, that's exactly why Bakugo's quick temper is so popular among the show's fans. We get to see his friends make fun of his short fuse in this affectionate way, which is kind of childish and exactly the type of thing we would expect students their age to do. His volatile nature works not just as a comic relief, but also reveals the depth of his own issues. He's a talented quirk user, and his quirk explosion is a powerful offensive ability. As we find out from his mother, he's been praised and fawned over all his life for his quirk and skill in using it. This causes him to be arrogant and cocky. So when Deku comes along, suddenly in possession of an immensely strong quirk, and gives him a run for his money, Bakugo's pride is wounded. He's worked hard to become the first student from their school to go to UA, and never thought that quirkless little Deku would come anywhere near him in ability. Not only does Deku become arguably stronger than him seemingly overnight, he also eventually reveals that he's been keeping notes on Bakugo's quirk, and knows just how to beat him in a fight. He can even figure out how other quirk users can get the advantage over him. For such a prideful character as Bakugo, that's gotta hurt. So it makes sense for his character that he would place himself in opposition to Deku as a not-so-friendly rival. The combination of serious jealousy and comic relief work well and play off each other to make Bakugo a well-developed character, based off of his angry nature alone. If we look at the other sides of his personality, we can see that Bakugo is designed to be a fairly realistic teenager. He's the cool schoolboy troublemaker, and he can emotionally be immature at times. As an audience, we enjoy emotionally constipated characters because it gives a sense of dramatic irony. Dramatic irony is when the audience knows something the characters don't. And in Bakugo's case, we know that the way he says he's feeling isn't always the truth. We also know that his impulsive behavior and immaturity give him room for growth, a moment of revelation, or a release of emotion at some point in the story. Those moments of emotional vulnerability, like when he cries in front of Deku, are satisfying for us, because we know how much work it took Bakugo to be able to let down those walls. In spite of his immaturity, he's actually intelligent and shrewd when it comes to using his quirk. Instead of just barreling in and blowing things up, he really thinks about how to use his quirk to get the upper hand. For example, by pushing himself out of the way or getting above his opponent. Along with this intelligence comes his sense of justice and good. He chooses to work towards being a hero, when he could have easily channeled his overwhelming ambition towards being a villain, to defeat heroes instead. His reasonings might be selfish at times, but ultimately, he wants to be on the side of good. That's a conscious and admirable choice that he makes explicitly in the series. Although he was introduced as a narrative foil for Deku, Bakugo has some interesting relationships with the other characters, and a life beyond his interactions with the protagonist. After entering UA, he develops a strong bond with Kirishima in particular, which, by the way, I love Justin Cook. Their mutual respect plays a major role in the plan that the student heroes form to save Bakugo from the League of Villains. His pride won't allow him to accept help from anybody else. 1A knows this and are able to use it to their advantage. We also get a glimpse into his home life. He obviously gets his short fuse from his mother, who's just as loud and snappy as he is, whereas his dad is a bit softer. But we can see that they care about him and want him to be the best possible hero he can be, which is why they're kind of harsh on him. Any background information about a character like this really rounds them out as people. I think the scene with his parents is endearing and makes him seem more like a troubling teenager again. Personally though, I enjoy his interactions with Todoroki the most, with Todoroki being stoic and thoughtful, and Bakugo being loud and impulsive. To me, they make the funniest double act in the show. Todoroki is one of those friends that irritates him on purpose, and the way that he does it with such a straight face is genuinely amusing. Bakugo even wants him to consider him as much of a rival as Deku, which just goes to show the respect that Bakugo has for Todoroki. But his chemistry with all the other characters he interacts with, as well as the brief look we get into his family life, makes him a likable character in his own right. Finally, I want to talk about Bakugo's growth as a person throughout the show. This is probably the biggest thing that makes fans love him so much. His personality is dynamic and complex, which means that he isn't a black and white character, and it's the gray area that we find so engaging. While Bakugo starts out as an arrogant bully who looks down on those weaker than him, he is changed by his experiences throughout the story. So he goes from being a bully to a rival, and the change is that he gains respect for his opponents and humility within himself. A good example of this is during the sports festival when everyone expects him to go easy on Uraraka for being a girl. He surprises them by giving it his all, as a way of showing how much he respects her abilities, and is even praised for doing so after the event. So what started as sheer arrogance has been replaced with pride. Pride isn't necessarily the best quality. It is one of the 7 deadly sins at the end of the day. But without something like Deku's pure desire to help people, or Uraraka's goal of earning money for her family, pride is a good driving force for Bakugo. It's his pride towards being a good hero that forces him to be a better teammate and pushes him to be stronger individually alongside his rivals. Remaining a proud person means that losing some of his arrogance doesn't change who he is as a character too much, but does show he's maturing. His personal growth is arguably the most impressive in this series so far, and has even gained him a huge following of diehard Bakugo fans, me being one of them. I think that about finishes up our exploration into what makes Bakugo such a popular character. He's easy to understand, but once you dig deeper, he's actually a complicated and interesting person, who can stand up well to the other strong personalities in the story. It's clear that there's going to be lots more to see from Bakugo in the future, and I'm excited for it. Let me know if you love Bakugo as much as the rest of us in the comments, but please try to avoid manga spoilers for those of us who only watch the anime, and stick around for more My Hero Academia content.